Hello friends, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. I have returned from a long voyage away from YouTube to become a Twitch streamer, which is why I've been absent. But if you want to check me out on Twitch, you can find me at dungeontutor.com. Otherwise, I'm back. And today I'm going to be talking about RPGaDay. All through August, every day I'm going to be putting out a video talking about a topic that I found at RPGaDay.com, which is to uplift the community, share our experiences, and maybe teach a few things. Today, for day 3, the topic of today is Poise. Now, Poise is a wonderful thing. It is the manner of holding one's grace in the face of threat, strife, stress, and those with poise rise to the top when things go bad. Those without crumble and fall. And today, for the example in gaming that I'd like to give you for poise, an example of 2 separate companies. But first, I have to set this up by explaining the circumstances. If you were into games back in 2023, at the opening of the year, something came out, although the stirrings occurred the year before or later. But it was simply this. The bully in the room, the titan of role-playing games, Wizard of the Coast, owned by Hasbro and owners of Dungeons & Dragons, stepped forward and told all of the people who were creators using their materials, we want you to know we're going to change our open gaming policy. Now, the open gaming policy, the OGL, is one of the things that helped Wizards of the Coast dominate the market through 3rd edition D&D and return to the market in 5th edition D&D. Between those two, they had something that was not quite as helpful and permissive for 4th edition, and despite the fact, 4th edition really didn't grab people's imaginations in the same way, that also froze out a lot of third-party help that they might have otherwise enjoyed. So, not all, but some of it. So when they told everybody we were changing things, people took notice. And when they read the proposed new gaming license, it wasn't so open anymore. It would demand that if they made a certain amount of money, Wizards of the Coast would get a cut. And also they were claiming some share of property in terms of anything that was made using their materials. Well, you might imagine that didn't go very well. I mean, that's just a gross oversimplification. The actual stuff was pretty bad. But a number of people panicked. Now, I am friends with people in GUI Cube, a small publishing company based out of Colorado. And they're great people, but they tied their wagon onto Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It was the sensible choice. Logically, it was the biggest game, and still remains the biggest game, despite a couple of black eyes here and there. They are not doing so well in the public domain, but, there's still a certain amount of attraction that they will always get for being the biggest and having the money of Hasbro behind them to make sure they get a lot of market share. And in this particular case, the average gamer might not have cared tremendously. But when they went after even the influencers, your people like Matt Mercer, Ginny D, and people who are actually making money off of Dungeons & Dragons content that they're promoting, then that started to cause the average person on the street to notice, and for many of us to care. I saw how that change was going to affect my friends at GUI Cube and other creators that I enjoy, so I wasn't very happy about it either. And I went to YouTube in my role as Dungeon Tutor, and I talked about it at length, to the point where we all started sharing the signal. But that isn't poise. What I did was not poise. Mine was just reaction. A little outrage, but reaction. Mostly was bringing the facts before people, telling people what the actual new proposed gaming license was going to do, and breaking it down in a way that, again, cutting through legalese, it would explain, yeah, it's pretty much the free ride is over, people. If you actually want to make money and earn a living on D&D, they're going to slice into that. So, as you can imagine, the outrage was high. But a lot of people just we can't fight Hasbro. They have lawyers. They have really scary lawyers. Maybe not Disney level lawyers, but they got the money for good lawyers. And a little YouTube creator or a little Twitch user or somebody like that doesn't have the money to go up against Wizards of the Coast. And a lot of small indie creators who were using 5th edition's open gaming license, they were also stuck. They were going to have to submit, or they were going to have to stop doing what they did. But here's the Poise I want to talk about. There's 2 companies I want to discuss. The first one is somebody you may have heard of, possibly. They do make an awful lot of content, and a good portion of it is for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, Kobold Press. Now, Kobold Press are the little guys. You know, they don't make all the money, but they make some really nice quality products. And again, they look for the niches that Wizards of the Coast has neglected to fill, giving more range of magics, monsters, feats, all the sort of nuts and bolts, the grease that makes the system run a little bit better. And a lot of players do love their material. It's generally fairly well thought out. I've not found it to be terribly exploitative. And a lot of their unique material that they put out, courtesy of creators like Wolfgang Bauer, who, again, a legend in the industry, they make nice stuff. But they took notice. Now, all of a sudden, all of their stuff that they've been making with 5th edition in mind, including stuff that they were in process of making, suddenly they were worried that Wizards of the Coast was going to swoop in. So what did they do? They said, okay, we don't think you legally can go after us for what we've already made. All the materials that we've already made should be under the original open gaming license, so we should be all right. But we're not going to work with you anymore. If you're going to do this, we're done with 5th edition. But what are our options? Well, we're going to start a movement. We're going to start a crowd-sourced role-playing game that is like Dungeons & Dragons, but uses none of your open gaming license stuff. So they did. They made Tales of the Valiant. And from what I heard, it's a pretty good game. It is, again, similar in theme, scope, even feel to a certain extent, like Dungeons & Dragons. Just different enough that Wizards of the Coast can't turn around with Hasbro's lawyers and crush them. And they're supporting it. They're still making material for it. They're the little guys you just kind of want to root for a bit. But that's one form of poise. It's taking something bad and not immediately crying and breaking down and capitulating. It is standing firm in the face of what, again, was not much less than a case of shameless bullying. Now, Troll Lord games, on the other hand, demonstrated another kind of poise. When you are confronted in a confusing, possibly scary, injurious situation, there's a number of ways you can react, but some people will tell you that bullies only respect force, and they learn best when they're punched in the nose back. Troll Lord took this approach. They wrote a nice letter, open letter, but including this targeted to Wizards of the Coast, and they're like, you know what? We don't think that you can actually change the open gaming license and affect anything we've made in the past. We've made a lot of 5th edition stuff and 3rd edition stuff. But you know what? We've got our Castles and Crusades that, even though it's, kind of close to close enough that we, I believe, boilerplated on the open gaming license on all of our books, we're not afraid to edit that and change it and cut out all mention of Dungeons & Dragons or anything touching Dungeons & Dragons. It will be our own game. Castles and Crusades will forevermore be divorced away. And if you want to come after us, we've got lawyers too. We are not afraid to take you on because we think that legally we're in the right. And you can have all of the most expensive lawyers you want. Black and white, we're right and you're wrong. And we're pretty sure we got a case to hold on to everything that we've made. So you may force us to split our fan base, those people who are enjoying the 5th edition stuff, We're not going to support you, not under the terms of this agreement, but we will make our own stuff still attractive and as competition for you. It probably didn't hurt that it wasn't that long ago that Wizards of the Coast's flagship project, Dungeons and Dragons, was defeated by a monster they created. They cut off Poise, the company that now makes Pathfinder, when they decided to go to 4th edition. They got rid of the magazines that Poise had been faithfully making for them for years, Dungeon and Dragon, and making other things. So they're just like, nope, we're cutting it off here. They didn't just suddenly in the dead of night do it, but it's quite clear from the letters that I received, because I was subscribing to both Dungeon and Dragon at the time. It's pretty clear that this was a solid blow to Poise. But what did they do? They showed their own Poise, in much the same way that Kobold Press did. They're like, you know what? We've been making these magazines for you. We know Dungeons and Dragons probably better than half of Wizards does. So we're going to make the version of Dungeons and Dragons we think should have been made all along. We're going to perfect 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to call it Pathfinder after the adventure line that they had already gone into. I know, because I was a subscriber at the time, that what they did was they basically started making these higher quality booklets. And if you're familiar at all with the Pathfinder adventure paths, where they break it up into multiple chapters that are all separately published, we got a few of those if we still had credit left from our subscriptions. I got a few of those early prototype Pathfinder adventures. And then they made their big adventure, and it turns out that the fans weren't quite done with 3rd edition as Wizards thought they were. They didn't just roll over and go into 4th edition in many cases. Oh, sure, there were people like me who went and bought 4th edition on day one, but boy, that was a collection of broken promises too, and we'll talk about 4th edition at some point, because it's something that I know a lot of people talk about. Not everybody was there when that all happened, so I'll give you my perspective at some point. But they made Pathfinder, and Pathfinder was, again, a more perfected version of Dungeons & Dragons. It's like, I call it Dungeons & Dragons 3.75. Because really, that's kind of what it was. It was the best version of D&D with a lot of new and exciting ideas that they put on from Poise. And it used the Open Gaming License. That same Open Gaming License hooked them. There was nothing Wizards of the Coast could do. The Open Gaming License was realistically that open. And it could be said that the new gaming license that they wanted to make was a reaction to that, because they never wanted to be beaten at their own game again, like they did with Pathfinder. That it was attempting to suppress the market, so they never created their own rival ever again. But for what it's worth, it happened. And maybe Troll Lord, maybe Kobold Press went and thought about it and thought, maybe they're not invincible. Maybe if we get a groundswell of public support, maybe if the crowd favors us and stays angry with Wizards of the Coast for the shenanigans they're trying to do, maybe that'll be enough. Maybe our games will succeed and we'll be able to take off and be industry leaders for making fantasy games too. Poise. Incredible pressure of the threat of having everything go south on you, that the bully is going to take your lunch money and there's nothing you can do about it. They fought. They worked around, and they all came through the other side. Now, of course, with public opinion crashing down, Hasbro is risk averse. They eventually caved and scrapped that. As a matter of fact, they actually put the standard reference guide, the system reference guide, the core of what the Open Gaming License is about, that material, they made it Creative Commons, so anybody can use it in perpetuity now, which is, now Wizards can't possibly do anything about that material. Anything further that they make, like any of the new changes for the 5th edition, that's not. It's important to know. But that is, plainly and simply, exactly how they demonstrated Poise under that kind of pressure. And it's staggering and humbling a little bit to see those changes, to see what they did and how it worked out. So, I hope this inspires you a little bit, because sometimes you can find ways to succeed, even if it seems like your way you've always done things gets taken out from under you. A bit of poise, and perhaps you can ride high and come out on the other side not only successful, but stronger as a result. So that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. I am the Dungeon Tutor, and this is day 3 of RPGaDay wrapping up. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate having you, and I hope that you, if you have any examples of poise yourself, feel free to leave in the comments. We'd love to read them and inspire each other. That's what we're doing here. I hope to see you again in the next video, and if I do, I hope that you, yes, you, get a chance to roll some dice, play some games, have some fun, but stay safe out there, friends. Until that next time, farewell.